Let's go over a step-by-step guide on how to do a fine-tune calibration on your Apple Pro display. If you're a Creative Pro and you want to get the most accurate color possible from your Apple display, this is everything you need to know about fine-tune calibration. I'm ArtIsRight. So this is part 2 of my 3-part series, and link to these will be in the description. In the first part, I've gone over in depth on the reference and preset mode, what they are, why they are there, how to use them, and how to create your own custom preset that is going to be best suited for your environment and your creative workflow. I highly recommend watching that video first before you continue on with this process. Now, even though you have gone and created a custom preset based on your color gamut, that may not necessarily be enough. So just quickly here, in my testing, I find that when I have done a fine-tune calibration, I'm able to get the delta E value lower than without. And it's also crossing a threshold. So if you're unfamiliar, delta E is a number to describe how your display is performing comparing to the reference value. The lower the number it is, the closer your display is to the reference value. That means the more accurate your display is. In general, for a good pro creative display, you want a delta E value below 2. Without fine-tune calibration, it's generally a value between 2 and 3. After fine-tune calibration, I found out that I can get the value way below 2, and many times it's between 1 and 2 on the lower side of, like, just like the 1+ area, which is actually really awesome. So we're going to go through that step by step in just a moment. And the third video we'll be releasing in the series is a full calibration. Interestingly enough, with macOS Tahoe and also the latest firmware on all these Apple displays that I'm about to show you, Apple have added a compatibility list or a device to it, and that is the ArtIsRight Display Plus HL. Now you can use this device that costs under $400 to run a full calibration on any of the Apple Pro displays, and that is just really fantastic. So let's go over the displays that are compatible with fine-tune calibration, reference mode, and full calibration. So for this, we're looking at the Studio Display version 1 and 2, the 27-inch 5K. This is the regular LED backlight. The Studio Display XDR, which is one I'll be doing this demo on, 27-inch 5K mini LED backlight for this one. The Pro Display XDR, this will be the 32-inch 6K that has been like the king display in the market for quite some time, and also the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pro. Simply going all the way back to the M1 Pro, M1 Max, so regardless of the silicon that you have, you're going to be able to go through this process. And if you have a laptop and you want to know if your laptop can do this process or not, simply look down the keyboard. If the space between your keys are black, similar to what you're really seeing right now, that means your computer is capable of doing all of this. So the device from ArtIsRight that I recommend in this process are the two, Display Pro HL and Display Plus HL. Now, do note though that there are more devices I'll be sharing with you that are compatible with this process, but when it comes to the full calibration, only the Display Plus HL is capable of doing that. So I want to be absolutely clear about that. So Display Pro HL, Display Plus HL, highly recommend the Plus one if you have that. Now, if you have these other devices, for example, i1 Display Pro, i1 Display Pro Plus, if you have the license upgrade for this, that you can run it on ArtIsRight, you can certainly use this device as well. Or if you have the Color Checker Display Pro or Color Checker Display Plus, you can use this with ArtIsRight Profiler, and I'll walk you through in the step-by-step on how to do all of these. Lastly, I do want to note that there are some distinction between doing a fine-tune calibration on the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pro and the Studio Display XDR compared to just the regular Studio Display version 1 and 2 and the Pro Display XDR. Which means that on this particular setup that I have, 14, 16-inch MacBook Pro, Studio Display XDR, when you do a fine-tune calibration, you're doing a fine-tune calibration to the individual preset mode. You're not doing it to the entire display all at once. That's why I'm putting on the check mark there for fine-tune calibration per individual preset. On the Studio Display version 1 and 2 and the Pro Display XDR, when you do a fine-tune calibration, you're really doing that to the display wide. That means that once you do it once, you don't have to do it for all the different presets, but you can't go in and refine the way how the display is showing on all those different preset mode quite as much as what you can do with these. To simplify this guide, I'll refer to this Studio Display XDR simply as Studio Display, Display, or just XDR. This is linked up to my 16-inch MacBook Pro, which can also do fine-tune calibration, but we'll be doing this demo on the Studio Display XDR. Now, I'll be doing a screen recording on my MacBook Pro, and I'll overlay this in the final edit so you can see the setting I'm changing, and you can also follow along. So to start us out with this process, what I'm going to do for this demo is use the Calibrate Display Plus HL, but do note the devices that I've gone over in the beginning of this video will work in the exact same way. So to start us out with the entire process, what we would do is go into System Settings and Display. In here, we will see the display that's linked up to the system. And what I want to do is a fine-tune calibration on my Studio Display XDR. So I'm going to click on that. Do note that the selected display would have that little triangle popping up at the bottom of it. You can see right there going back and forth. That triangle is important. Make sure you select the correct display before you start the process. Now, I already have this display in Photography P3, Adobe RGB D65, Luminance 80 with HDR. What I want to do is change this into just Adobe RGB, and I want to do a fine-tune calibration on this. So simply enough, I will choose the preset that I want, and do note that I covered this already, that Studio Display XDR and the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pro, when you do a fine-tune calibration, it is per preset. All right, so just something to note there. The other thing that I will also tell you is that once you have done the fine-tune calibration on these presets for these particular computer, especially on this external display, that fine-tune calibration and also all the other calibrations stays on the display, and it doesn't stay with the computer, meaning that if I disconnect this display and plug this into my Mac Studio M3 Ultra, I'm going to be able to access all these different preset modes that I have created, and also the fine-tune calibration, including the full calibration that I've done on this display too. So everything is stored locally on the display and not on the computer. That's the reason why there is an OS on there, there is a full chip on there, and it also runs the full pretty much operating system on its own. So what I'm going to do, I already have Photography, Adobe RGB, D65, Luminance 80 HDR selected. I am going to click on Calibrate Display. Now this setting, I want to quickly just show you by going to Customize Preset what I have entered here. So I'm going to use that as a guide and click on plus. So this is using Adobe RGB. We're using Whitepoint D65 Pure Power 2.2. This is Gamma 2.2. I have enabled HDR and the SDR is set to 80. So this way you at least see this, but I'm not going to save another one. I'm going to click on cancel for now and cancel this out. And we're going to go back to this dialog. At the very bottom, click on Calibrate Display. Now it's going to pop a dialog up on the display that you want to do the calibration on. So I'm going to have to just bring that over. Now this dialog tells you a few things about your display. It tells you the name of the display, the serial number, the preset you're using and you're doing a fine-tune calibration on, and also the calibration if you have done that already, which I have using the Display Plus HL device. I've actually just done that recently. And there's also a fine-tune calibration, which is saying it's not done yet, so no adjustment has been done. At any given point, if I want to reset the entire display, you can click on Reset All and just confirm by resetting all there, and it's going to reset everything back to default. It will remove my full calibration, it will remove fine-tune calibration, all the presets. I still have many more demos to do, so I'm not going to go through that process just yet. At the very top, you have a few methods. Full calibration, we're going to leave that for part 3, but we're going to talk about fine-tune calibration. However, before we do that, I want to quickly talk about visual fine-tune. This is a feature that I think is pretty great in terms of just matching the display that you have to another display that you may have linked up to the system. In general, if you don't have to use this, I recommend not using it. The reason why is because you're relying on human vision, which can many times not be able to discern small minutia differences between color, and it's not going to be as precise as using an instrument. In general, I recommend using an instrument, but if you really need to do this, you can certainly go in and you can see that my display is slightly changing color based on what I'm going to do right now. And what I can do is just come and reset the fine tune here too, but I'm going to leave that visual fine tune right in the middle and just click on back so I don't have anything going on that's changing the way how this display is looking right now. All right, now we're ready to do fine-tune calibration. So I'm going to click on fine-tune calibration, to which this dialog pops up, and I need to get a measurement. So how do I do that? Well, I'm going to use the Calibrate Display Plus HL, and I'm going to launch Calibrate Profiler software. If this is your first time signing in, you have to create an account with Calibrate first, but because I've already done this before, everything is already there. So what I'm going to simply do is click on Monitor, and I've already gone through this process. I'm going to choose Advanced, and you want to do the same thing as well because it's going to start you on Basics. So make sure you choose Advanced, choose Monitor. And also the other thing is I don't have the device plugged in yet. So what you want to do is have your device. You can plug this into the Apple display. You can plug this device into your laptop. It doesn't really matter where you plug it in. I'm going to plug it into my laptop for now. I'm going to give it a moment for it to authenticate with the software. All right, so use license device found. I'm going to reset the program quickly so that it recognizes it. Notice how it's showing the Calibrate Display Plus HL is active. You want this to be active first before you continue, otherwise you're just in demo mode and you're not using your time wisely. So I'll click on next, and I'm not even going to worry about all these settings here much. I'm not even going to click on the second display to push this on the second display. It really doesn't matter for this process. Now the thing is that I have a Display Plus HL. If you have a Display Plus HL or a Display Pro HL, you can certainly go in and choose Mini LED as a backlight. But if you have any of the other devices, you can just simply use white LED, and you're going to be able to get a measurement of white point that's going to be close enough to what you need. So I'm not as concerned about that one, but for now, I'm going to click on Mini LED. We're not really creating the profile here, so it's not going to create too much of a drastic difference. Now, the next thing, we're not going to worry about any of these settings down here. I'm just simply going to go and click on that third circle at the very top, CIE D65 default. And from there, I'll simply click on under white point, custom. A drop-down list would show up, and I would just click on that drop-down list and choose measure K. Now it's going to ask me a question. What do I want to measure? I'm going to select measure secondary screen luminance and click on next. So the next thing I need to do is to activate this device. Essentially, I need to open the cover up. So simply just pull the cover and rotate it to the back just like that. And the other thing that you can do is hang this on the display. You can do the adjustment, but before we can do that, we need the white patch. The program has that. So I'm going to click on white patch, and this is going to show up a white patch up, and I have to leave this in the middle of the display. So I'm going to drag this over. All right, that's close enough to the middle. I'm going to put this on the display. And if you need to adjust this, it's not a lot of brute force here. There's a little tab that you can just simply press on this little like counterweight, and you can just simply pull and remove the cable just like that. See, it's super simple. It doesn't have to use a lot of force at all. Just have to press on the tab, and then once you let go of the tab, everything just stays in place. So that's how you would do that. What I'm going to do is hang this on the display right now. We're going to tilt the display back so that the device lay flat on the screen. And the next thing I'm going to do is click on measure so that it's starting the measurement process. This will be really quick, and it's going to give me a report result, to which we're going to enter that in to the fine-tune calibration dialog. All right, that is finished. I'll bring the device down from the display, rotate the cover just like what I'm about to do now. Just rotate it to the front where the lens is and press down to cover it up, and you're pretty much good to go. So this is now giving me a white point of the display, including the luminance. What I have found out is the Apple Studio Display XDR tends to run about 6 to 7 nits brighter than the reference value that I have put in. And I've showed you earlier, I've set this to 80, but it's coming a little bit above. I think what Apple is really doing is pre-compensating. So when the displays start to dim in the future, the number would go down, but it would stay kind of like within range or so. All right, so for fine-tune calibration for a white point, the measured value that we have based on what we're seeing from our device is 0.313. Something that I do want to share with you, I want you to notice that if you're in a European country, sometimes you use comma instead of period. You may have to use a comma instead. Because I am set to like US localized language right now, I'm using a period. But if you're in a European country, for example, I know France, sometimes they use like comma instead. So this is just some FYI. If you're entering this and it doesn't really take, it may be because of that. So this one, the Y value, white point is 0.327. And I'm also going to put in the white point value for both D65 and also D50. These white point value works for Adobe RGB, sRGB, P3 color gamut. So it covers a large swath of color gamut that you can use. The white point are the same value. It's just slightly different between D65 and D50. The luminance on this one, it is 86.9. So I'm going to just put down, sure, I'll put down 86.9. In fact, I could just round this up to 87. It doesn't really matter. So for the target value, this is D65, so it's 0.3127, and this is going to be 0.329. For the luminance, I want this to be 80, so I'm going to type that in. Notice though, when I type in a number that's off, it's showing me an exclamation point. And if I hover over that long enough or click on it, it doesn't really tell me anymore, but it's supposed to tell you the number out of range. And sometimes I find out if you have, for example, a MacBook Pro that's a little bit older, the 14 or 16 inch one, sometimes the luminance value is way below the value. It won't allow you to go through. There's a couple of ways to circumvent that. and I'll go over that in a separate video. But for now, what I'm going to do is just type in 80 here so that the number is close within range. I think plus minus 10 is the number it will take. You can certainly give it a description. I'm not going to give it any description here. You can type in the description. You can type in the measure value. Whatever you want to do, you can certainly do that. What I'm simply going to do is press on done. You're going to see there's going to be some slight changes to this display. It's just a very minutiae change. But what I have done on this display now is set it to this preset mode. I've done a full calibration, and I've also done a fine-tune calibration. Simply enough, when you're done with this, just close this out. On Calibrate Profiler, I'm just going to close out the software. And back in this screen, what I can do is simply go into choose like another preset if I want to do another fine-tune calibration. In fact, this next preset I'm selecting right now, I've already done a fine-tune calibration on. So if I click on Calibrate Display, you can see that I've already done a fine-tune calibration on that specific reference mode. However, if I've gone in and changed it to another reference mode, this one I have not done the fine-tune calibration yet, you're going to see that the fine-tune calibration say no adjustment. So remember, on the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pro, on any generation, going back all the way to the M1 Pro, M1 Max, and on the Studio Display XDR, fine-tune calibration is done on individual preset mode. On the other display, it applies to the display wide, it is applied to the display at large. So you only do it for one preset and it applies to pretty much everything. So yeah, this has been a guide on how to do a fine-tune calibration on your Apple display. So anyway, I hope you find this guide helpful. Give this a like, subscribe, and hit the bell if you're new. Make sure you stay tuned to my third part on the full calibration. I'm Art, and I thank you for your time.